Would guidance from an expert help you to grow your business or career? Or do you seek inspiration for you or your kids? If so, welcome. Behind the Words TV gives you that one-on-one time with famous and emerging authors or content creators. They'll take you where you want to go. Behind the Words TV, right now. Is friendship important to you? Is friendship important for your children? Well, it is to me, and I'm glad it is to you too, because guess what? This episode of the Behind the Words TV, we're going to talk about friendship. Hi, I'm Paul Madsen, host of the program and founder of growmedia.com. And today, I'm joined by Kathy Rygg. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Paul.
Welcome to the chapter of the episode.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet, you bet. Kathy is a fun person to have on because she, of course, has written a book, and we're going to talk more about that. But Kathy's written many books, and today we're going to focus on the idea of friendship because, of course, in the Butter Brickle Bond, that is a key theme, isn't it, Kathy?
It absolutely is, Paul.
Well, tell us a little bit about the book.
So first of all, I'm a children's book author. So I write for middle graders, which is 4th, 5th, and 6th grades. And the Butter Brickle Bond is actually a historical fiction book. And it takes place in Omaha, and it was set in the year 1926. And
wow, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Almost 100 years ago, huh?
Right.
Wow.
And the Butter Brickle Bond is a story about friendship. And it's about an unlikely friendship between two 12-year-old girls who bond over their discovery of America's favorite ice cream. They invented Butter Brickle ice cream. Of course, not a true story. It is fiction, but
it's based in reality, based on actual facts, maybe.
Yes, exactly.
But tell us about the friendship part.
Right.
Now, these are not typical friends who would normally connect up as friends, right?
Correct, that's right. So, of course, for, as you mentioned, any age, but especially for middle grade kids, friendship is really, really important. And if you read any middle grade book, friendship is going to be a central theme in any middle grade story.
Sure.
And so in this particular story, we have two girls from two completely different socioeconomic classes at the time,
right.
Which was very apparent in 1926. And so the two girls, they form a friendship, which is looked down upon, by others.
By their,
yes,
by the
and
adults, right?
but they do form this friendship over their discovery of Butter Brickle ice cream, and a lot of fun things happen in this story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the friendship. I think you're saying. Elementary kids, older elementary kids, I mean, they're just starting to form their own friendships. Is that right?
Right, exactly. So they're formative years for a lot of reasons, but especially for developing those friendships that can carry on throughout life, and really trying to find your place, with your friends and who's going to be your friends. And, as we've all experienced, friendship triangles can be tricky.
And I think there's a little bit of that in this book,
there
too.
There is. And so
I've read the book. I
right.
liked it. Yeah. And
so it's how the main character is navigating, her place and how she needs to decide who truly is her friend and who isn't, and what's important to her.
So not only about friendship, a guide, so to speak, for maybe some kids who are having those friendship issues. Is there such a thing as Friendship Week or something like that?
There is, yes. So the last week of July is National Friendship Week.
Okay.
And so this is perfect timing because we're going to, everybody's hopefully going to be celebrating their close friendships and their bonds.
Sure,
so
sure.
It's good, and so always good to reach out to your closest friends.
Well, if parents want a story that talks about friends and leads friendships and is a good role for that friendship can transcend a lot.
Yes.
I'm not giving too much away, I hope, but
well, and in this case, since it's set in 1926, obviously, it's a friendship story does certainly transcend decades.
Well,
so.
Exactly. A friendship is hopefully known for all humanity. You
right.
bet. And this book, The Butter Brickle Bond, will help people cement that idea. Great read for your kids, middle grade kids, friendship themes. Kathy, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Hi, what are genres? When you read, when you write, we are inundated with the idea of genre. What is that fancy word? What's it about? We're going to learn that today right here on Behind the Words TV. Hi, I'm your host, Paul Madsen, and founder of growmedia.com, and I am excited because today, right now, for this chapter of the episode, we are with Kathy Rygg. Kathy, good to see you.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Kathy, what are genres? What does that mean?
So, as you mentioned, a lot of people have heard the word genre, right? And typically they think of it as a category of book. So
Okay.
you could have mysteries, you could have romance, children's books, fiction, nonfiction, all kinds of different genres.
Okay.
So typically think of it as a category, but
Category.
then you can have different categories within the category
that's
as well.
true. Subcategories, subgenres, and subgenres.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And in fact, anyone who's familiar with publishing on Amazon knows that when you do publish a book on Amazon, you can drill down and pick all different kinds of categories.
Well, let me ask you, what is your genre?
Good question, Paul. Thanks for asking.
You never thought I'd ask.
So my genre is middle grade fiction.
Middle grade fiction.
Yes, so books for kids,
Books for kids,
like this one.
like this one.
Yes, the Butter Brickle Bond. So, and middle grade, in case people don't know, typically is for kids between the ages of 9 and 12. I get a little bit more specific than that. I specifically write for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders.
Okay, 4th, 5th, and 6th.
So most of my characters are 12 years old in my books.
Okay.
And then within that, this particular book, The Butter Brickle Bond, is historical fiction. Most of my previous books have been what I call magical realism,
Okay.
which means they take place in this world. So they're mostly realistic,
Okay,
however,
okay.
there's an element of magic in them.
Yes.
Unlike fantasy, where fantasy takes place in a
yeah.
whole different world.
Everything's
usually. Yes.
magic, yeah. And how many books have you written that are out
So
there?
I have 8 published books.
8 published books. I
Yes.
don't know how you have the time, but you've been writing for a long time.
Yes, I have.
And you say some of the genres are this similar. Tell us about, a little more detail about the Butter Brickle Bond
Sure.
genre.
So historical fiction, that's a little bit different. So obviously it takes place in the past.
Right.
In this case, it's 1926
Okay.
in Omaha. And historical fiction is unique because, usually, you have to be accurate with the time period, with what they wore, with what they ate, with
Yeah,
things going
yeah,
on,
yeah.
culturally at the
Yeah.
time. But obviously, your characters are fictional, your story is
Sure.
made up. So
Sure.
you're,
Well,
you're combining those two elements, which can be tricky.
Well, it is. You have. When I've read the book, and when I was reading it, I wondered how does she know that about 100 years ago. But it's based in Omaha, and it's based in buildings I've been in downtown, the Exchange Building, for instance.
Yep.
I love the scene where they go to a party in the ballroom upstairs on the top floor of
Right.
of that place, and because I've been to a party there.
Right.
And so this was really cool. Only 100 years later.
Exactly. And same thing with the Blackstone Hotel,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
which has just recently reopened as a hotel.
Well,
So-
yeah, and so that's really cool. And how else? You're a writer. Maybe there's other writers out there want to kind of learn how to research historical things, or tell us a little bit how that's done.
Sure. So with historical fiction, like you say, there is a lot of research involved. And during the writing process, you have to stop a lot and make sure that, okay, what I'm writing about, did that exist in this year?
Good point.
Was that actually something, would they have used that word, or is that more of a modern word that,
Sure.
they wouldn't have used back then?
Sure.
So,
Wow.
so it's a much longer process.
Oh, I bet.
Because
Yeah,
there's
you
a
can't
lot
just
of
make
research.
stuff up,
right, there's a
right.
lot of research involved, but
Yeah.
it makes it fun too. And I learned a lot, which
Oh, I bet.
which was really exciting. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have it take place in Omaha. I
Yeah.
wanted to learn more about
And
where I grew
think
up. So
you're spot on. Yeah, I think there was a great deal of, I just could see the stockyards and smell the stockyards.
Right,
It took
unfortunately.
Me, yeah, it took me along the whole path there. You talk about genre and writing in a genre. I think of Amazon. They have so many subgenres, and this is for people who want to write, authors out there. People talk about how to sell and hype your book. You could be an Amazon #1 bestseller. Well, they talk about that, but there's like 16 genres deep. For instance, I knew of a guy I had a book that's an Amazon bestseller. Sounds impressive, right? Well, he was the bestseller of rural bicycle trails, rails to trails, and six times. There's 3 other books in the genre.
Right,
But I'm a bestseller.
Which actually, that's not a bad thing.
And it's not. It's a good marketing ploy.
It is. It's very good marketing. And, as you know, readers, when they find a genre they love,
Right.
then they want
stick
to,
with it.
they devour books in that genre. So
Any last pointers for writers who want to pick a genre? How do they do it?
So usually it's easier to write in a genre that you enjoy reading as well. And that's one of the reasons why I chose historical fiction, because my favorite type of adult fiction books to read are historical fiction.
Great advice from a great writer of a great book, Butter Brickle Bond, available on Amazon. And thank you, Kathy, for being here.
Thank you, Paul.
When you see kids glued to their phones, what do you think is the future of the world? When you see adults glued to their phones, what do you think the adults are going to be like too? I mean, it's crazy out there. Everybody's glued to a phone, to a screen, to a computer, to a tablet. Is there hope for mankind? We're going to talk about that on this chapter of Behind the Words TV. Hi, I'm Paul, your host and the founder of growmedia.com. And with me to talk about that today is Kathy Rygg. Kathy, good to see you.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Hey, great to see you again. And is there hope for mankind? We're all like this all the time. In fact, I took a road trip last weekend, and everybody on the road's that way.
Yes.
It's crazy out there.
It is. And I would say, yes, there is hope for
Okay,
mankind.
good. I'm glad to hear that, yes.
Obviously, digital devices are a necessity these days.
Right.
But the good news is, 10 years ago when everyone said print was going to be dead, that is not the case. And in fact, print is thriving today.
You told me that. Tell me about that. I can't believe it.
Yes. So as an author, I love print, right? I love print books. I love print magazines. I love anything I can get my actual hands on. That's
and I know
print
something
to
about
read.
you. You've been writing since you're a kid too, right?
Yes.
But yes, you love print, you love books, you love magazines.
I do. And so what's so interesting about print these days is that in the book publishing world, print books have actually made a resurgence. They are outselling ebooks again, which is a great thing. I think it's especially important for kids because as we know, kids spend a lot of time on digital devices.
Right.
But to actually put an actual print book in children's hands is still extremely important. And a lot of kids that I know prefer print books to ebooks.
Well, and I mean, I think that and I've seen articles where they talk about that, where that people say, oh, I just love the smell of a book or that feel of the pages in my hand. And you know what? When I'm reading something here, when I have a book, it just sits there. I turn the page. Over here, I gotta go this way and this way and this way, and then if I take a long time, it turns off. So this is much nicer.
It is, and print is forever, right?
Right,
so
right.
you see these people who have their bookshelves full of books. I mean, there's something to be said for that. That a print book or printed material truly can last forever.
Well, sure, you're involved with a magazine, I know, and it's such an elegant and beautiful magazine. Should I say the name?
Sure.
Edge Magazine and Dine Magazine, they're both so elegant and beautiful that I hate to recycle them because I just love the pictures and the views, and I hold on to print, and I think a lot of people do as well.
Yes.
Well, tell us about your print book.
All right, so the Butter Brickle Bond, that is my latest children's book. It's a historical fiction book for middle graders, which is for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders.
Okay.
It is a friendship story, and it takes place in Omaha in the year 1926, and it's about two 12-year-old girls who form an unlikely friendship, and they bond over their discovery of America's favorite ice cream, Butter Brickle.
There you go. Yes. Discovery. Yes.
Yes, and so it is actually a fact that Butter Brickle ice cream was invented at the Blackstone Hotel
I did not know
in
that.
Omaha in the 1920s.
Based on actual events.
Yes, but there's very little other information
Okay.
about it, so
Wow.
I decided to make up a story about how that happened.
Well, and it's in print. I mean, and of course there's ebooks available too, I'm sure.
Right.
But it's a medium that the kids can hold on to. I think when I think about print books, I mean, this is not original. I just read it the other day. Somebody said, I heard it actually. He said, I read an ebook sometimes just for the convenience or maybe the cost, but then I go ahead and I buy the book, which drives my wife crazy. And she says, why do you do that? And he says, well, then I have a trophy. And I feel the same way because my bookshelves at home are bulging, and and I look back and say, if I had it on a phone or whatever is saved under some file, but I forget where, well, guess what? I have a hard copy, the edge of it staring at me, and I say, oh, that Butter Brickle Bond, that was cool about the Blackstone Hotel. I mean, do you feel the same way?
Absolutely, yes. And that is the thing, is that you don't forget about print books.
Right.
You can, like you mentioned, you can easily forget about an ebook that's sitting on a device somewhere.
Yeah, who knows where,
but,
right?
you can easily refer back to your print book.
Well, excellent. Well, if you're looking for a good trophy for your kids about friendship, historical fiction, Omaha, Nebraska, lots of great friendship tales in it, consider the Butter Brickle Bond. And Kathy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Paul.
Do you ever wonder how a great story comes to be? What is the source? What is the inspiration? Where do the ideas come from? Well, those are the topics we're going to talk about on this chapter of Behind the Words TV. Hi, I'm Paul Madsen, host of the program and founder of growmedia.com. With me today to discuss those important things is Kathy Rygg. How you doing, Kathy?
Good. How are you, Paul? Thanks
Great
for
to see you.
having me.
Great to see you. Thank you for being here. Hey, where do stories come from? Out of the air?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. Where do your stories come from?
Story ideas can come from anywhere,
Okay.
any inspiration, and most writers will tell you ideas just pop into their heads.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
It's channeling all that. That's the hard part.
It is, yes.
Too many ideas in my head. All those voices.
So I'm a children's author. I
Right.
write middle grade fiction for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade kids.
Right.
And my latest book, which is The Butter Brickle Bond, this is actually a historical fiction book. And where I got the idea for this book is I love reading historical fiction, and one of my favorite authors is Tracy Chevalier, who has written probably most famously the book The Girl with the Pearl Earring.
Okay.
And what she is exceptional at is taking a more unknown event or time in history and creating an entire story around it. So
Which is what you did.
I wanted to try to do that.
Okay.
And it's very well known in Omaha that the Reuben sandwich was invented at the Blackstone Hotel during a poker game in the 1920s.
Wow. I did not know that.
What's not so well known is that Butter Brickle ice cream was also invented at the Blackstone Hotel in the 1920s,
Okay.
but nobody knows by whom or
Right.
how that happened. So I decided to create a story around that.
Well, it's just like the TV or the movie that says based on actual events.
That's right.
And then you can put in your own stuff. And I've read the book. You've put in a lot of great stuff, a lot of friendship themes and great stuff. I mean, so how do you have this, well, first the inspiration from
Yes.
this other author. She has a real event and then she kind of fattens it up. And you had the local
Yep.
inspiration, local events. How do you fatten that up?
Right. So a lot of times with writers, there are two different ways that they go about the writing process. You have people who like to outline. They try to outline, the major plot points and the chapters. And then you have what we call the pantsters. They're the people who write from the seat of their pants. They don't outline. They just go with
Pantsers.
it. The pantsters, yes.
Yeah.
I have tried it both ways.
Okay.
And I am way better outlining the story
Yeah, okay.
to begin with. You can still, kind of go veer off here and there, but
Right,
at least you're
right.
still following the same path to get to the end.
Right,
So
I understand.
I prefer to outline.
Well, and I think that's good because I have written a novel, and I'm a pantser. Well, the problem was I had 4 or 5 novels within one novel at one point, and I go chop, 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 and it was still too fat. A local excellent editor said, I told her about my novel, and she said, "But Paul, that's 2 novels."
Right.
So I guess I'm not Stephen King, especially based on sales. So anyway, yeah, I think the importance of outline. How do you outline? I mean, how do you do that? I mean, there's writers watching and they want to learn and know how you 8 books, right, so far?
Correct, yes.
So this is not a new idea for
Right,
you.
no.
Were you a pantser or an outliner for most of them? Which one?
So there was only one that I actually tried to just wing it, And I kind of got to a point and said, I don't know where to go from here.
Okay.
So
Well,
that's the difficulty
sure.
about it. But there are actually writing classes that you can take. Metro has great writing classes where it helps you do that outline process.
They do.
So typically there are certain plot points that you're writing towards, and
well, and YouTube has too much information. I mean, if you want to, how do I write a subgenre of historical fiction? I mean, you could probably get only 25 videos there, and most of them are trying to sell you a how-to course, of course.
Sure,
but,
right.
But I mean, when you talk about outlining, I mean, tell us about your improvement. I mean, you started several years ago. I mean, could you notice an improvement over the process?
Oh yes, absolutely.
And how do you notice it, and how did that happen?
Well, what you start to do is, as you're outlining, then you can compare it to books you're reading and see, okay, well, what's how does their story flow, and
well, that makes good sense.
Yeah, so you can start to see the science behind the craft.
Is it a formula? Would you go as far as saying that?
There are definitely some formulaic aspects to writing.
Do you think the big sellers, are they formula books, or are they breaking the formula?
So when I talk formula, I think it's more about having your story arc follow a certain path, and you're hitting certain plot points along the way.
Right.
But the true differentiators are in your character development, the voice that you're having as an author, your writing style, and those take a lot of time to develop over a lot of years. But you just practice like any other craft. You practice.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head there with the bottom line on it. You've got 8 books on your belt, and number 8 was enjoyable for me. The Butter Brickle Bond, Friendship, Historical Fiction, Local Omaha. Check it out for your middle grade reader. Kathy, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Paul.
Hi, is writing your passion? That's good, because today you're with some special guest on the Behind the Words TV, and we're going to talk about writing and how to make writing your passion, how to hone your passion, how to make it happen for yourself. Hi, I'm Paul Madsen, host of Behind the Words TV and founder of growmedia.com. Today, I'm excited because I'm with, for this chapter of the show, Kathy Rygg. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Good to see you. And hey, is writing your passion?
It absolutely is my passion, Paul. And I always like to say, writing isn't what I do; it's who I am.
I love that. Writing isn't what you do; it's who you are. Give us some backup to that. Back that up.
Sure. So I am a children's author. I write middle grade fiction for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade kids. And I have been writing made-up stories since I was in kindergarten.
Kindergarten, yes.
In fact, I wrote my first book when I was in 2nd grade. I drew little pictures. I bound it with some yarn
I have
and cardboard.
seen this book.
Yes.
Can you think of what caused you to do that all those years ago?
You know, I don't know. It's just something I've always enjoyed.
It just came out of you.
It did, yes. And I have a journalism degree, so I continued to write through college. I'm also editor and writer for a magazine, so I've just it's
Plus you have 8 books.
And I have 8 books, yes.
Out there in the marketplace. Well, tell us about the most recent one here.
Sure. So the Butter Brickle Bond. This is a historical fiction book for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. It's essentially a friendship story. It's the story of 2 12-year-old girls. It's set in Omaha in the year 1926, and it's about their unlikely friendship that leads to the discovery of America's favorite ice cream, Butter Brickle.
Yeah, yes, well said, well succinctly said. Your passion for writing, I mean, you've done, this is kind of a different one. You've gotten some series and some other. I mean, tell us how you select what you're going to write next, because you've got 2 or 3 different kinds of books out there.
Right, yes. So I have written magical realism books, adventure books. This is historical fiction, and I read a lot of fiction.
Yeah,
so it's like anything else. If there's something I want to try, a genre I want to try, then I go for it.
Sure. Well, I asked at the start of the show, do people have a passion for writing? How do people select? What's your advice for people to select what they're passionate about? How do they find out what they're passionate about? How do they know?
Right.
I mean, so often people say, I want to write a book, but I don't know what about.
Right. Well, typically then I would recommend read a lot. Read a lot of books, see
Okay.
what resonates with you.
Okay.
You know, think about, okay, I really like this book. What is it that I like about it? And
Okay.
is that something that you could translate into your own story somehow?
Okay, sure. Well, you said you have a journalism background. You went to college for journalism?
I did,
And
yes.
where? And when?
Yes.
I almost said when. Can't ask that.
Yes.
Just a couple years ago for college, yes.
I was actually graduated from Iowa State University,
A
so
fine
with a
school
degree in journalism.
In journalism, right?
Yes.
And did you work in news world or
Magazines.
magazines
Yes.
all the way along?
So I did a lot of some public relations, media relations,
Oh, okay.
but really a majority of it has been in magazines.
Okay, the whole ever since college.
Yes.
But that's keeps you on your toes because there's always deadlines, right?
Absolutely, lots, and there is when you write a book too.
Oh, I suppose.
It's good to make your own deadlines to keep you on
Well,
on
that's
task.
good. Tell us about your relationship with a publisher. I mean, how does that work? How do you find one? Do you need an agent? All these kind of things.
Oh, that's a whole
Well,
other
we have
chapter.
We have 2 whole minutes. We have
Yes.
2 whole minutes.
So personally, I have a small independent publisher called No Wonder, and they publish just children's books.
Okay.
So that's what I've used for all 8 of my books.
Okay. Wow.
And
Okay.
yes. And there's all different. You can self-publish. There's small publishers. There's hybrid publishers. There's the large, traditional publishers. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get published, which is great.
Yeah, well, that's nice. There's lots of options. We were talking before the show about print on demand and how don't go out and order 1,000 copies of your book because you may not sell 1,000. They may sit in your garage. Nowadays, print on demand. If I ordered Butter Brickle Bond, which I did, it did not exist until my order hit Amazon, and then they created it, and I had it at my house 2 days later. Isn't
Right.
that magic? Speaking of magic, yeah.
Yeah.
And so print on demand is a way to go, and for a lot of people, publishing like Kathy is another way. Any advice for people to find their passion, how to get that story out there as we wrap up here?
I would just say just start writing. Sometimes journaling is a great way to start,
Right.
and something can come out of that. And I also recommend read, because that's a great way to
It
get into it.
sounds pretty basic. To get better at reading or writing, read and write.
Yes, they go together. They're hand in hand.
There's your price of admission right there. Well, that's great. Kathy, great to chat with you today.
Thank you,
Thanks
Paul.
for coming. Butter Brickle Bond, and check it out. It's a great read for your young middle grade students.